Welcome to One Bills Lite, the 5G connectivity version of One Bills Live. In today's episode, we play the numbers game with the highest scoring teams in the league and a compelling comparison between the Bills and the Chiefs. We speak with NFL Films' Greg Cosell about what makes Miami's third down defense so special, and we consider the possibility of the Bills playing the same team in the wild card round that they played in Week 17. It's happened before. Time to fly!
And it's Steve Tasker who has been all over the field.
Kind of unique. He was kind of a dual-role player for you. Steve!
A balloon.
Steve! A blimp? We're not even in the stratosphere of normalcy here. Hello again, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on One Bills Lite, the Audubon version of our Monday to Friday show, One Bills Live, where there is no speed limit, and we'll give you all you need to know in the time it takes you to drive to work. Steve, it's been an interesting week, to say the least, with the AFC East champion Bills hosting the second-place Dolphins in a season finale that means a lot more to Miami than it does for Buffalo.
No question. It's a spot for Buffalo. It's an interesting situation because Buffalo could gain a little something. They could for sure get the number 2 seed in the conference by beating Miami.
Right.
They wouldn't have to worry about what Pittsburgh's doing, and Pittsburgh's going to rest Ben Roethlisberger. They got Mason Rudolph trying to beat a Cleveland Browns team who really needs the game. So you think, Pittsburgh's kind of throwing in the towel on their game. So it kind of takes a little bit away of the urgency that you have to win against Miami. But having said that, you still don't know who you're going to play in the first round,
right?
Because there's 4 spots that we don't know who's going to be there and what they're going to be shuffled at. So it's a foregone conclusion.
And among the myriad of scenarios that exist in terms of how these teams all fare in Week 17 to determine the playoff matchups in the first week of the playoffs, namely Wild Card Week, there is the added dimension of this for the Bills with respect to a home playoff game. There will now be fans in the stands after New York State put forth a plan for the Bills to enact in Bills Stadium, and they are doing that, and now there will be 6,700 fans at the wild card game. Would that impact you as a coach, Steve, in any way, knowing there's a very strong possibility that if you win that wild card game, you will again have some fans in the stands for the divisional round?
For me as a coach, they've been through this once or twice. They had some fans in the stands at the Tennessee game. They had some fans in the stands in the Miami game.
2.
So they've kind of seen what it's like to have a smattering of fans there. I don't think it's the difference maker that Bills Mafia would make on a normal playoff game. And this game, it's a tip of the iceberg. So I don't think it's that big a deal. Having said that, I will say this. I called it months ago.
You did?
Months ago.
I will give that to you. What was that, like April or May? I think it was April or May Steve called that one. So, yes, tip of the hat to you. I salute you for being a soothsayer.
I will say this. It's going to be I think it's going to be an emotional moment for some of the fans in the stands. Now, certainly, you're not getting the protocols and all the hoops that everybody's got to jump through to get in there.
Yeah, and they're telling people not even to venture from the zone in which they're seating. Go to the concession stand closest to you. Do not start venturing around the stadium. They want you to stay in a specific zone. If you got your buddy, hey, I'm at the game too. I'm on the other side of the stadium. Do not meet up with them.
You can't. It's not like that anymore.
Yeah, it's going to be different.
So, but having said that, it's still going to be a difference, and I think it's going to be a little bit emotional for some of those fans to be in the stands on this. And I know this: there are thousands of Bills fans around the globe who would money no object.
Right.
They would love to be in that building when it happens. I've already had friends of mine who I've known for decades who, they're asking me questions like, how do I get my people in? Do I have to have the information of all the people? We have to get so all that.
Please go to BuffaloBills.com and read the frequently asked question sheet. It's very thorough. It answers a lot of your questions.
But answering your question, I would say this: no, that's irrelevant. It comes down to my team.
Yeah, it's not a tipping point.
It's not a tipping point.
Okay, we begin our numbers game, Steve, this week with this statistic, and I'm always diving through these numbers to try to find interesting things for you. There are 3 teams that can end the regular season averaging at least 30 points per game, 3 more averaging at least 29 points a game. So it would mark just the 3rd time since 1950 that at least 3 teams averaged at least 30 points per game. It was last done in 2018. It was also done in 2011. So, Steve, as we begin the numbers game, can you name the 3 teams that currently average 30 points per game or more? Cue our game show music here for you, Steve.
I was looking at it. I was looking at it the other day. It's been, you know who won? I know one surprised me. Tennessee.
Tennessee is right there at exactly 30 points per game.
I'm going to say the Pack.
The Packers, yes, leading the league at 31.6 points per game.
And I'm going to go out on a limb and say New Orleans.
It is not New Orleans.
Tampa.
It is not Tampa. It's the one that sits right in front of your face. It's too obvious.
Bills?
No, not the Bills.
The right in front of my face. The Chiefs.
The Chiefs, yes. Those are the top 3 scoring teams in the league.
Since you said that, I got me because I thought it was going to be a surprise because the Chiefs were like just below. But you're right. Yeah, the Chiefs.
Okay, so Green Bay 31.6, Kansas City 30.1, and Tennessee an even 30. They have to have, weeks that are relatively close to that average here in Week 17 to maintain those points per game averages. Now, can you name the 3 teams that are at 29 points per game?
Your Buffalo Bills.
Yes, 29.7 points per game.
Thank you very much for that. That's so. I can't believe. I just want to.
It's awesome, isn't it?
I just want to eat that like.
You want to soak it up like a sponge.
I just want to drink it up. I will say the Rams.
Not the Rams. They're not on this list.
Seahawks.
Not the Seahawks. Now, Steve, you were naming teams that you thought scored 30 points.
And they were no's. Oh, okay.
And they were no's, so
Tampa.
there might be some there. Yes, Tampa Bay 29.9.
The Saints.
And the Saints, 29.9 as well. Good job, Steve.
All right.
We tried to reduce the degree of difficulty. I was in a giving mood. It's New Year's and all of that, so good job on that. Okay, so since
I feel good about myself.
Now, here's the next step, okay? We want to compare the Bills and the Chiefs because people have been doing this ever since the Bills went on their tear. We've heard Dan Orlovsky say that the Bills are the best equipped team to beat the Chiefs in a playoff scenario. So there's been this tete-a-tete going on for the better part of the last few weeks. So we thought we would do a comparison. And I know you and I have had the conversation on One Bills Live that it's how you're playing down the stretch sometimes that can mean the difference in the kind of run you go on in the playoffs. So since Week 12,
the last 5 games,
the Bills and the Chiefs, okay, we're going to compare here. Bills and Chiefs, and I want you to tell me whether you feel the Bills statistic in the category I give you is higher or lower than the Chiefs. Okay, so we begin first with margin of victory over their last 5 games. Is the Bills' margin of victory higher or lower than the Chiefs?
It blows theirs out of the water. The Bills are rolling people.
So you're going higher.
Absolutely.
Okay,
the Bills are higher than the
and
Chiefs.
you would be correct. So why don't you tell me, you have to ballpark it, okay?
Bills got to be, hold on, yeah.
Margin of victory last 5 games.
Last 5 games.
What would be your guess? Average margin of victory here.
12.
It's higher.
Is it? They're killing people, baby.
17.8 points per game in their last 5.
Yeah, the Patriots game and what was the other game that the Steelers game? What was it?
Steelers was 11-point victory.
Oh, the Niners.
Niners was, Niners was lopsided. I don't have the scores in front of me, and God help me to remember.
Let me go over here and look.
Here's the other thing. I mean, we heard this because a lot was made of the fact that the Chiefs have won a lot of one-score games of late. Their margin of victory, 48-19, the Denver game. Their margin of victory, the Chiefs in their last 5 games,
6 points, right?
4.2 points per game.
I'm telling you, folks, the Bills are rolling people. If in a vacuum, or if the Chiefs were off the table and what they did the last couple of years because of Mahomes and his MVP year and then the Super Bowl run they had, so they're 2 years, so they're on the top of everybody's mind like they're rolling. The Bills are doing exactly what the Chiefs did to get to that point.
That's right. Okay, so next up, Steve, points per game over the last 5 games. Is the Bills' points per game average higher or lower than the Chiefs?
It's got to be higher.
It is higher. You want to guess what the number is? What would you guess their points per game is over their last 5?
The Bills have got to be 30, 33?
34.6 points per game. over the last 5. Chiefs are at 26.2. Yeah, just keep eating it up. Next statistic, Steve, is points per game allowed. Over the last 5 games, do the Bills have a points allowed average that is higher or lower than the Chiefs? And again, keep in mind, if you think the Bills are better, it would obviously be lower because we're talking points allowed here.
I'm going to say lower.
And you would be correct.
Lower, yeah.
It is lower than the points allowed by the Chiefs.
Nobody's got 20 points on them, do they?
Bills allowing just 16.8 points per game
Niners
over the
got
last
24.
5.
Niners got 24. Everybody else is in the teens and single digits.
Everybody's 20 and under, I believe. Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty good. Chiefs are allowing 22 points per game over the last 5.
I just want to rub that on like lotion.
Don't you?
It's so good.
SPF 50.
That's right.
Total, this one's tough. Total yards per game. Is the Bills' total yards per game higher or lower than the Chiefs?
Oh, it's got to be. Well, the Chiefs average a little more per game than the Bills, significantly.
Last 5 games, though.
Yeah, I'd say that the Bills are higher.
I think the Bills are higher. They are not actually on this one. The Chiefs.
Well, you talked me out of it.
Well, sorry. You were on a roll. You had 4 in a row. So this one, the Chiefs are averaging 448 yards.
Yeah, they can move it
per game.
They didn't go away.
Bills are at 424.
The Bills are looking awesome, but the Chiefs are, they are what they are.
And the last one, Steve, 1-loss record over the last 5 games. Buffalo's winning percentage higher or lower than the Chiefs?
We're higher.
Believe it or not, it's even. That was a trick question.
Yeah, I figured.
They're both 5-0.
I knew we couldn't get beat.
They're both 5-0 over the last 5 games. So that was good. All right. Okay, well done, Steve. Time now for our interview of the week. It's senior producer from NFL Films, Greg Cosell, who explains what has turned the Dolphins defense from the worst points allowed defense in the league a year ago to the best in the league. Senior producer from NFL Films, also the co-host on the ESPN NFL Matchup show. It is one Greg Cosell. Greg, I'm sorry we're a little late here, but we had breaking news. No Ryan Fitzpatrick for this game. Now, we knew he wasn't starting, but my God, I think people were expecting that Tua would get a quick hook if he wasn't effective. Now, they're talking about signing Jake Rudock, of all people.
They did sign him. I just saw that before we started.
There you go.
So he'll be the backup quarterback. So I guess Tua's going to have to go 4 quarters. Now, it's been fascinating that they've talked about him, and, hey, they know more about Tua, and I'm not questioning Brian Flores, but in 2 games this year in which Tua clearly struggled, and we can talk about that momentarily, but in 2 games this year in which he struggled as your so-called franchise quarterback, they pulled him. And I'm not saying what's right or what's wrong here because they know him better than I do, certainly, but I just find that fascinating.
Yeah, I think it puts him in a position, and if I'm Tua, and I know, and I just said this in the last segment as we closed out, that if you know this young kids and how they're wired, he understands exactly what this means. So I think he'll be empowered to say, listen, you got to be ready for this. I think he'll do his best to rise up to the occasion rather than say, wow, all this pressure, I hope I don't mess it up.
Yeah, I've been around him. He's a great, great kid. But at the end of the day, what's really interesting, if we start talking a little Tua from a football perspective, is their offense with Tua, their pass game, is somewhat condensed. It's very basic. I know a lot of people I see on social media say, why don't they let him turn it loose like he did at Alabama? Well, they know him better than we do. And if they choose to play this kind of pass game with Tua, that means they believe that this is what he can do at this point and that he can't do much more than that. Now, I'm not making a judgment, nor are they, about what he is a year from now, 2 years from now. But at this point in time, they clearly see him as purely a timing rhythm thrower in which everything has to be basically short, intermediate to short. And that's essentially what their pass game is with Tua at this point.
Right.
I know you often study, the quarterbacks in each and every draft class and put together reports on them. With respect to Tua, Greg, we've seen smaller statured quarterbacks succeed in this league. Russell Wilson isn't 6 feet tall. Drew Brees is another example. And Tua probably fits into that category. Not elite stature, not elite arm strength, I guess my question, Greg, is when you put your report together on Tua, were there any traits of his that qualified as elite?
Not from a physical perspective. And it's funny you mentioned two quarterbacks, Chris. In my report, and I saw that Nick Saban actually said the same thing, which made me feel like maybe I got one right. I thought that he would have to be like Drew Brees to play at a high level in the NFL. To me, he's not Russell Wilson. He does not have that kind of movement.
Right.
He's not a statue, and he does have some mobility, but he's not the same kind of mover Russell Wilson is. I saw Tua as a timing rhythm player in which the scheme needed to present throws for him. And if that was the case, he could be a very efficient player. The one thing I will say, and I watched 2018 tape and 2019 tape at Alabama, and I'll say this from watching him this year with the Dolphins, guys, he's had some pretty significant lower body injuries. He had the hip injury, which not many people have had. I guess Bo Jackson's the only one I know of that I can recall anyway. He's had the two ankle injuries, pretty significant ankle injuries. I don't think he throws the ball with the same velocity as he did before these injuries, and he was never a true velocity thrower to begin with. So we'll see how it goes as he continues.
Yeah.
But no, he to me would have to play like Drew Brees to be a great NFL quarterback.
Right, and that's why. And the reason I threw that question at you, Greg, was because if you're drafting somebody 5th overall, I have to believe somewhere in your report you believe they are elite in something. I mean, that's a high-value pick. You've got to be picking a player that you see elite in some way, shape, or form. And I don't know. Maybe I'm just believing that it's too much of a big man's game. Maybe I'm being blind to the exceptions. But I don't know. I'm having a tough time seeing anything that is truly elite about Tua's game. And that's why I asked you that question.
It's a great point, Chris. I mean, ultimately what you're saying when you draft Tua is you believe, based on what you can do with him, that he will become elite in execution. And maybe that's the thing you're looking for. But you're right. In terms of physical traits, he's not elite. I mean, look, someone like Justin Herbert, obviously, there were concerns with him coming out that everybody saw. But when you look at the fact that he's 6'6", 240 with a big arm and can move, you look at the traits. Hey, look at Josh Allen. When he came out of Wyoming, there were concerns. Okay, people now act like, oh, people didn't like Josh Allen. Hey, there were legitimate concerns about Josh Allen. You guys know that. But the fact is, you're dealing with a kid that's 6'5", 6'6", 240 pounds with a rocket arm, great movement. You see traits that jump off the film. With Tua, the traits are ideally consistency of execution, and that's different than just pure physical traits.
Well, let's switch it around. You've been watching the Bills like we have, absolutely steamroll people the last 3 or 4 games. I mean, they've really been on a roll. Their defense is playing. They held the Patriots to single digits on the scoreboard. They ran up the score 38-0, and that's just been one of a bunch of games that they've done. They've scored 48, 38, 26, 34, 27 in their last 5 wins, and their defense has stepped up. What do you see? I mean, I've said this. I keep waiting for them to, hopefully they can stay sharp. And not only do they stay sharp, they seem to be improving on with another great performance. I mean, where's the top end here for Josh? What another step can they make, or is it just more of the same?
Well, that's a great question. It's a beautiful segue too, based on what we just said, because Josh Allen, think about this, okay? And it all comes down to consistency, obviously. No one's going to sit here and say Josh will never have a bad game or never make a bad throw. That's not the point. Steve, that's the way it works. Guys, it's the NFL. Guys are going to have bad games, have bad moments. But we're talking about a really highly talented guy. I just actually did a national radio show not too long ago, and I made the point, and of course I'm sure I'm going to get ripped for it big time on Twitter, but it won't be the first time. Josh Allen's more talented than Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence, of course, is a generational talent, so I don't know what that makes Josh Allen, but he's got more talent than Trevor Lawrence. So you're dealing with a guy that is at the highest end of talent. And when you see him play now with the precision that was definitely a question when he came out, as you guys know, but the precision with which he's playing and his much better understanding now of what kinds of throws are required. When he throws that firm touch ball to Dawson Knox this past week, right over the underneath coverage, that's not a throw he would have made, I'm sure you guys agree, his rookie year or even the first 10 games last year. That throw against the Niners to Gabriel Davis where he threw it just over, I think it was Fred Warner. He would never have made that throw a year ago. So now you're dealing with a guy who's much better in the details and nuances of the position. Instead of being a thrower, he's developing into a passer. And so you're dealing with a really, really high-level talent. Now, Steve, in this league, no one scores 40 every week. That's not going to happen. Right. But I don't think Josh at this point is going to go down. He's not going to descend. And I think the command that he's now playing with, that's the thing you can see on TV. There's a command to his game that he clearly didn't have a year ago, and certainly not as a rookie.
Flipping it over to the defensive side, another side of the football that's been playing much improved over the last few weeks for Buffalo as well. And I'm sure when you put on the tape, you saw this immediately, but Matt Milano looks like the old Matt Milano again.
My guy. I've been talking about him.
I know. That's why I'm asking. I know you like him.
For 2 years.
Yeah, I know you like him. But, I mean, he was so readily noticeable on the field Monday night. I actually had to tweet it. I said, this is the old Matt Milano that we're used to seeing. What does him playing at that level do for this defense going into the postseason? Now that you've seen the emergence of the way in which they can use Klein in certain spots, but if Milano can play wire to wire in a game, what can that do for this defense headed into the postseason?
And by the way, the A.J. Klein signing was a phenomenal signing, and obviously Sean and Brandon Beane knew him from Carolina, and he played at a really high level the more he played. But Milano was just a better athlete, which takes nothing away from A.J. Klein. Milano is just a better athlete, and he's more multidimensional in the kinds of responsibilities he can be given, because not only can he play linebacker in a strict sense and work in the box and be effective in the run game, but he is an explosive athlete who can play outside the box. He can match up to tight ends. He can play sideline to sideline. People don't talk about him that way, and I don't know why. Maybe it's the Buffalo thing. I can't answer that. I'm just watching tape, and for 2 years I've seen a kid who was highly athletic. He's an explosive athlete. He can do a lot of different things, and I think he and Edmonds, who's obviously a much bigger man, but also an explosive mover, when those guys are on the field as their nickel linebackers, and they're a nickel, their sub defense is nickel. They don't play dime hardly ever. Right. Those two guys, when they're at their best, are as good a pair of nickel linebackers as there are in the league.
Let's dive into this game that means so much for the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills. If under normal circumstances, and you can tell us, the Miami defense has been the engine that has carried their team. Am I right?
For the most part, yes.
And why are they so good? We've been looking at the statistics and numbers. Why are they so good on third down? They're the best team in the league, and they're number one in points allowed.
Yeah, well, first of all, they play a lot of man coverage, and they're very good with their pressure schemes. Brian Flores, comes kind of a little bit from the Belichick school. Obviously, this is a team that will line up and play cover zero, where they'll just go all out blitz and play man across the board. They're proactive. They're aggressive. They don't play scared. They attack offenses. They make you react to them. And they're really, really good at that. I mean, I remember an earlier game this season against the Rams, and clearly Jared Goff and Josh Allen are totally different players, but for pocket quarterbacks, they present a lot of problems. So, yes, that is the engine that kind of drives them. We know that their offense has been very up and down, and certainly now with Tua likely playing the entire game. I doubt Jake Ruddick's getting on the field. It'll be very interesting to see, but we just don't know who the Bills are going to play, so that's a tough question to answer. But Tua has struggled. Tua does not see things particularly clearly right now. He leaves a lot of routine, easy route concept throws on the field. To me, watching the tape last week, that's why he was benched. Not solely because the production and scoring wasn't there, but when you dial up basic concepts like slant flat, which is a routine throw in this league, and he's not turning it loose to the right guy, then he's just not seeing it.
Greg, looking at their running game, each of the last 2 weeks, it's been more productive than it had been earlier in the year when it's been basically a disaster. Do you see these last 2 weeks, the performance of the Dolphins running game, as a sign that things are getting better, or do you see it as an anomaly?
I see it as a sign that they know that they have to run the ball, and obviously they have to try to run it as well as they can. Obviously, 2 weeks ago it was Ahmed. This past week it was Gaskins, who I think they believe is their number one guy, and when he's played well. So I think you will see them run the ball. Now, whether they run it successfully, that remains to be seen. It wouldn't surprise me as well to see them. These are no longer trick plays in the NFL, but it wouldn't surprise me to see them with jet motion, orbit motion, the kinds of things that potentially can create some explosive plays. Because quite honestly, with Tua in there the last number of weeks, they've not created very many explosive pass plays.
Getting over the Buffalo side of the football, Steph Diggs named AFC Offensive Player of the Week, and the Bills just signed another wide receiver for even more depth. When they get healthy, they'll have John Brown, Steph Diggs, Cole Beasley, Gabriel Davis, and now it looks like they may sign Kenny Stills. What can you tell us about Houston and this wide receiver? They released him just after Week 11 when he came down with a quad injury, and now it looks like he's talking seriously with the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I always liked Kenny Stills. I mean, I think when you talk about him as a third or fourth receiver, he's really, that's what fits him, because he actually has vertical ability, as we're seeing here. He can get down the field. He could always run. You know, for some reason, I always thought he'd develop into a little more than he became, but there's no question he has vertical ability, and this is clearly a team with vertical route concepts. So who knows what that means if he does sign, if he does have to play. But I think he kind of fits the approach that Brian Daboll on this Bills passing game has.
And so when you have these games like this, and I know that you were featuring, at least I think you guys are featuring Bills-Dolphins in your matchup show.
We did, yes.
Yeah, so how are you guys pulling this one off, not knowing what's going on here with the Bills?
Yeah, that's why I got in touch with you the other night, Mr. Brown, because Matt Bowen, you know, he wanted to do a piece on Josh, and we ended up doing it anyway, because at the end of the day, it's still going to play really well on social media when we put it out, because it's Josh Allen. But, you know, we were trying to figure out, these games are hard Week 17, and unless the team comes out and announces it, like the Steelers, like the Chiefs, you know, Sean's keeping it close to the vest, which is certainly his prerogative. I mean, he doesn't have to say anything at all, and he may not. But, you know, Matt ended up doing the piece, and it's a great piece. It's actually a breakdown, and you guys are very familiar with it, but, you know, maybe all of America isn't. The breakdown of the touchdown to Diggs, the 50-yarder, which was, and the reason Matt did it is because it came against man coverage, and they're likely to see an awful lot of man coverage from Miami.
Yeah, Steph Diggs even talked about that play. I had a chance to talk to him after the game, and he said, I wasn't here last year to see Josh last year. I only know this year. But my teammates are telling me last year he's probably waiting for the post route and not looking at the underneath crosser last year. But this year he is. And he said the safety did take a couple of steps towards the Diggs over route and then retreated back to cover the deep route. I'm kind of wondering, from a defensive back perspective, he's doing that because he's afraid of Josh's arm, maybe more than anything else.
Well, here's the way I saw it, and I think this speaks to the command and growth of Josh Allen. When Josh dropped back, he initially pumped Diggs, and he pumped Diggs because he wanted McCourty to jump Diggs. Okay, now McCourty's a veteran safety, so McCourty, you know, didn't jump him very much. He only took a couple of steps because he wanted Davis on the post. That's what he wanted to throw. But when he pumped, you can see him, he pumped Diggs. And then he saw that McCourty was not going to give him what he wanted. So he came back to Diggs theoretically on the second window. We normally don't use the word window on versus man coverage, but he hit Diggs across the opposite hash. And that's because he had to wait. But he really wanted, it was Davis, I believe. Yeah, he really wanted Davis. And you're right, Chris. It's very possible a year ago he throws that anyway. But no, this time he absolutely did the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Greg, thanks for the time. We'll look for you on the matchup show and tell Matt Bowen we're sorry we couldn't help him.
All right, guys. Have a great New Year's.
Yeah, you
Thanks.
too.
Greg, Happy New Year.
Finally, Steve, we close with a bit of history. Okay, we know that if the Bills win this Week 17 game, there are 6 different instances where the Bills could host the Dolphins the very next week in the wild card game. There have been 14 instances of teams facing off in the last week of the regular season and then the first week in the playoffs in the Super Bowl era. Only one of those 28 teams in those situations reached the Super Bowl, the 1992 Bills. Your team, Steve, lost to the Oilers 27-3 in Houston in the final week of the regular season, then hosted them for the wild card game.
35-3 in the first quarter.
And we all know what happened after that. What were your thoughts and the thoughts of the team going into that game, knowing you weren't going to have Jim Kelly in the wild card game? Thurman didn't play, right?
He was out with an injury.
And Cornelius Bennett didn't play in that game. After losing in the fashion that you did down in Houston just a week ago, what were the thoughts of you and the team?
I'll reflect on the atmosphere that was going around the Bills Mafia at that time. The game didn't sell out.
Right.
We had been to 2 Super Bowls.
People thought the jig was up?
And that game happened at the end of the season, and the season had gone as it had, and I can't even remember the entirety of the season. But the game didn't sell out in time to lift the blackout. So the mode in the locker room kind of reflected that. Said, listen, we really got to step it up if we're going to win this game because these guys just lumped us, and we had no answers. So the atmosphere was a little bit of, I don't know, I can't go that far to say we're just going to have to, finish out, and hey, let's have some pride and go out and play. It was a little bit of, we can win, but things got to go our way. I mean, we've got to really play.
And then they didn't in horrific fashion.
We flamed out. It was like it was going to go out in a blaze of glory, right? Getting out like the emphatic, you guys went to 2 in a row.
Mayday,
You're not going to the
mayday.
third. Yeah. We were going down smoking, right? And, then they 35-3 after we get the ball out of halftime. And Frank
throws the
first
pick.
throw, it goes through McKellar's hands, tips fortuitously for the Oilers into Bubba McDowell's hands. Boom, touchdown. 35-3. And right then, the switch, the stress level for our team completely went away. And you think, what are you talking about? Well, because you ain't winning the game.
Well, you're almost laughing at that point. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, the game's over for everybody. So
can't
we
do
just
anything
said,
else
you
but
know what?
laugh.
So here's what it was, and here's the culture and this is where you can say what you want about culture. Marv Levy's culture and our culture said, listen, we've been to 2 Super Bowls. We're not going out like this, but if we do, they're going to have to stick a stake in our heart because we're going to swing. We're going to take our swing. So we started, let's go. All no holds barred.
Yeah,
let's go, guys. Just let it hang out. And if we don't work, who cares?
Going for it on 4th down.
So we lose 48-3. We got to go. So we did. And, of course, on the other side of the field, the Oilers were like, their switch went off as well. They said, listen, these guys ain't coming back from this. We are beating them. What would it be? 35-28. We've beaten them 63-3 at this point. After the last half of that other game, we're killing them. Let's just shut it down and get out of here healthy.
Final, yeah.
We're thinking about the divisional round of the playoffs. Let's get out of here healthy, guys, and go. And it was just too early in the game for them to do that.
The Bills also, we should mention this. The Bills with a win on Sunday against Miami would also run the table in the division for the first time in team history with a 6-0 mark. Why is that such a hard thing to accomplish for teams? I mean, we hear about the familiarity between clubs all the time and, their battles and, it's a knockdown, drag-out game every time you play a division opponent. What are the main reasons why it's so hard to run the table in your division?
I hate to say it, but it's the same reason we're seeing this year. You get to the end of the season, you got a division game, you've already got it wrapped up.
Not putting your foot to the floor in this one.
You don't need it.
Yeah.
Bills don't need this game. And the health of key players is more important than having some obscure record first in team history to do it. Now, having said that, it's my appeal, and I don't know this. We haven't talked to Sean McDermott. We've just been kind of the tea leaves, knowing what we saw last year.
Yeah.
Matt Barkley's not going to lay down for this team.
No.
T.J. Yeldon's not going to lay down for these guys. Tyler Croft, offensive, all these guys, they're going to be out there knowing that this is a game that they can make a statement about their own individual careers as well as the team that they're playing on, the guys ahead of them, the depth of the team. It's a statement going forward. So, yeah, the guys out there, it's going to be fun to watch them, and it's going to be fun for the starters, guys like Josh, to watch these guys. But that's the reason you don't see teams sweep the division. If you get 5-0 in the division, it's like nobody's going to catch you.
Right. Lots of interesting dynamics in this Week 17 game, something you don't always see, but it will be on display when the Bills play the Dolphins on Sunday. That's all the time we have for this edition of One Bills Lite. Please make sure you subscribe so you always know when the next episode drops, and we're available on all of your podcast platforms. And remember, when there's not enough time for One Bills Live, there's always enough time for One Bills Lite. For Steve Tasker, I'm Chris Brown. Happy New Year, everybody. We'll see you next time.